Millions of low-income Americans will lose access to SNAP food aid benefits on November 1st, cutting off their only means of affording staples like milk or vegetables.
Fear, just fear. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids.
To last all the way for the next month, even to cover December, it won't. We will be starving.
What am I going to do is what I thought. And it's not really fair to a single mothers trying to feed our kid and trying to get by to get better.
Look beyond yourselves. Look beyond the fight. There's real Americans that are struggling out here.
Joining us now is Sandy Sweat, Executive Director of Harrison Food Bank in Harrison, Maine. The bank serves Western Maine residents in need of food assistance. Thank you so much, Director Sweat, for joining us. You know, we talk about SNAP, we say food aid, but to be really clear for the viewers, this is about Americans, people who live in this country who cannot afford food because of the way that our government has not given raises to folks around the country in years. The minimum wage is still terrible. Making sure that they can eat. And so I guess I want you to kind of give folks the idea of, are you seeing an increase in folks who are coming for food as this continues to drag on? And what does it mean for folks who have to ask for help? Because Americans want the American dream. They want to be able to afford everything on their own.
Absolutely. This is not a third world country we're talking about. This is the United States. And this crisis started before now. We've been cut off from food. We've been lowered the amount of government food that we do get. Maine is very rural, and those people are really suffering. We don't have, services on every street corner. We don't have food or transportation, a lot of these people. And as soon as they announced that they were going to they weren't going to get the November SNAP benefits, my phone started ringing. Within a half an hour, it started ringing, and people are scared. I've had people from 2 hours away call me, can I go to your food bank? And then, like you say, I've also had people say, I'm so embarrassed. And I'm like, please don't. This is why we do this. We have 50 volunteers, and they work very hard to keep food out there, balanced food. You look in our boxes, and you can make balanced meals from our boxes. And this is so important. I need the food. I need the finances to be able to keep food for these people. And not only that, but let me point out, this is one of the biggest holidays in November for families to get together. Thanksgiving. Everybody gets together. Traditionally, I've always given Thanksgiving food to cook. I've given turkeys, chickens, potatoes, squash, onions, vegetables, stuffing, cranberry sauce. I mean, we're going to be hard hit this year. Last year, it cost me $12,000. It's going to be much worse this year.
Director Sweat, what would you say to the leaders here in Washington? President Trump, House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune. If you had a chance to sit down with one of them or all three of them, what message would you deliver to them?
I think you ought to walk in my shoes. You ought to come and see. Go deliver to food with me and see some of the older people or the families with children that wait to see what's in their boxes. That would be an eye-opener for you. And we can't cut off food. This is the United States. You can't do it. You know, there are so many people that depend on that food. Here in Maine, we have a lot of rural areas, and the jobs are really difficult up here, especially, we depend on tourism, and in the winter, it's tough. We have cold winters. It's difficult as it is to put heat, heat the house, have transportation, and do all the things that you need to do. And then when you start cutting off food, that's really difficult. Our older people, we have the most per capita of anybody in the country. they need that food. The children, growing minds and bodies, they need that food. This is something we really need to focus on, is getting the help for the food banks right now so that they pass out the food to these people.
And Director Sweat, I think that sometimes we have entered this new era in our society, like that I like to call the GoFundMe era, where we think that when a public good can't be supported or executed by the government, that there are these big public campaigns to try to crowdsource to support people. But when you look at something like the White House now and President Trump raising $250, $300 million to build a ballroom, what do you think that the public, very wealthy companies, corporate executives, all who are donating to this endeavor can be doing to support the citizens and the kind of people that you're working with on a daily basis?
Well, I think the timing is very wrong, maybe for that ballroom. And I've heard just yesterday when I went to the post office, I had two women talk to me, and they said, Sandy, what's going on with the food? And do you understand that they're building this big ballroom and you need food? And I'm like, exactly. We need to figure this problem out. This is priority right now. And, am I worried about how I'm going to do it next month? Absolutely. I think they're going to be lined up right down the street. And it really worries me. When I start to lose sleep, worrying how I'm going to feed people, it's not good.
Sandy Sweat, thank you so much for coming on The Weekend, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I hope that we can end this crisis soon. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I certainly hope so.
We'll keep having the conversations. Thank you. We're joined now at the table by April Goggins, a furloughed federal worker and president of the National Treasury Employees Union, Chapter 250. April, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I have kind of two questions. One, how are you doing? You've been furloughed since October 1st. And two, what we have seen for years, really, when it comes to the Trump administration and Republicans kind of writ large, is the dehumanization of federal workers, right? They've called you guys the deep state since 2016 and before. And when I was asking myself yesterday when I was prepping for the show, I was like, where's the outrage, right? We're in the 25th day of this, and the American people don't seem concerned. And before, I feel like they would have been. What does that dehumanization do when you hear that from the federal government and the president himself?
Yeah, well, first question, how am I? I think this is probably the first time that I've sat with, how am I?
Yeah.
Listening to the guests before, I'm really sad.
Yeah.
Not only, not for myself first, but especially for the families that we work with. I think about my neighborhood. I think about the elderly folks in my neighborhood, and I live in Southeast DC, so SNAP is huge.
Yeah.
And for me, yeah, no paycheck yesterday. That's real. That is real. But makes me sad. But I think there's so much internalized outrage that you don't always see it outside, right? Like you can have a protest, which I am a huge proponent of, but then we go back home. Yeah. And there just has been. A lot of people are calling this the shutdown now, but we've been in a showdown for 9 months, right? We have been trying to, they have been trying to get rid of us for that long, right? So there's just this sense of every day growing, just anger among federal workers. Yes, because the general public, I don't think understands what we do, right? We're all workers. We work to live, right? We went and we interviewed and we got a job just like they did.
And you work for different administrations.
Absolutely. We all work in different places, but we're workers. We're part of the working class of the United States. And the dehumanization, it runs really deep. One, because people don't necessarily, like I said, know what we do. So we do get that. If I was a deep state, I wouldn't be getting furloughed, first of all.
Correct.
And if I was the deep state, I would probably, my friends wouldn't be getting furloughed. But what we are is just workers like everybody else. And it's not just DC, right? We're learning now about what's happening in rural America, right? And we're learning that like all of these things are connected. When people lose SNAP, they don't eat. And it's not because they don't know how to work. It's not because they're living off the system. We live in a system that is already not affordable. Right? And so I listen to them talk about how hard it is to ask for help. Yes. And it's because we're placed in this moment where somehow we are, as federal employees, different than everybody else, right? We get the rap, but we're not getting paid. We missed paychecks yesterday. Congress got paid yesterday, right? And I think it's important to be able to hold both of those things.
Ms. Goggins, you're furloughed because of this shutdown.
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering, Democrats blame Republicans. Republicans blame Democrats. From your vantage point and from your friends and coworkers' vantage points, who's at fault?
The billionaires. I think this is not actually about the budget because they've been cutting that. They've been targeting that. I think this is about how the government workforce only makes up 4% of the government's budget every year. So when we're looking at who's to blame, it's the same people that have always been to blame because, it doesn't actually matter who is in Congress. It's about what they do and don't do, right? There are attacks on federal workers, on our working protections at the same time that now for our livelihood. And so I'm stuck between being really angry at the long-term time that it took for us to get here, for people to start thinking about it. But then I'm also like, somebody has to hold the line because what happens is when we go back, it still won't be the same. They have gutted our programs. They have, like you said, dehumanized employees. What are we going back to, right? It's broken. And so at some point, someone has to stop the bleeding. But I'm a firm believer that you can hold more than one truth at a time. Yeah, we need to get paid. And being out here, I think people don't necessarily understand. We can't do GoFundMes. It is against the law. We can't go get another job. That is against the law. And so there's no unemployment. You got to pay that back. You can go get food stamps. You got to pay that back. Most people don't understand that it's not just a matter of not getting a paycheck. It's not being able to get a paycheck and then not being able to get the things that you need in the meantime.